The planet Zerath 9 stretched endlessly under a harsh orange sky, its surface scarred by ancient wars and violent storms. The outpost stood as a fragile speck of life amid the barren landscape, a small colony where humans and alien species tried to coexist. Among them was Leora, a female Volari scientist whose delicate frame and paralyzed legs made her vulnerable in a world built for strength and speed. She had devoted her life to studying the strange energy sources that pulsed beneath the planet's crust. But her work made her a target when conflict erupted. Sergeant Ethan Kane arrived with his human unit to reinforce the colony. He had heard stories of Zerath 9's dangers, but nothing prepared him for the sight of the outpost under siege. Explosions rocked the ground, sending clouds of dust and debris into the sky. Alien guards fought desperately, but the attackers were relentless. Leora's colleagues scrambled for safety, their shouts echoing through the chaos. She could only watch helplessly, her heart pounding as the creatures she trusted most abandoned her. Ethan saw her immediately. Something about her situation struck him differently than the rest of the human soldiers. Without a second thought, he ran toward her, dodging falling debris and shards of metal. "I've got you," he shouted, gripping her carefully under her arms. Leora's eyes widened with fear and disbelief. Humans were supposed to fight, not carry aliens to safety. Yet here he was, risking his life for her when no one else would. The ground trembled beneath them as the attackers advanced. Ethan ducked and rolled, keeping Leora close, shielding her with his body. Dust filled the air, making it hard to see, and small fires flared around them. "Hold on," he muttered, determination in his voice. Leora could feel the heat and smell the smoke, but she clung to the thought that someone still cared. She had never experienced such selflessness before. They reached a temporary shelter, a half-collapsed building that still offered some cover. Ethan carefully set her down and checked her for injuries. "You're okay for now," he said, his tone calm despite the chaos outside. Leora tried to speak, but fear and shock made her words stumble. She had never been carried like this, never felt anyone treat her with such care. She realized that humans were unpredictable. They could be reckless, yes, but they could also be brave and kind in ways she had never imagined. The enemy forces circled the area, searching for any sign of survivors. Ethan peered through a crack in the wall, his eyes scanning for movement. "We can't stay here long," he said. "They'll find us." Leora shook her head, panic rising. I can't move," she whispered. Ethan nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a test of endurance and trust. As night fell, the orange sky darkened to a deep red and the sounds of conflict faded into distant echoes. Ethan gathered supplies from the ruined building, packing a small satchel with water, food rations, and a portable med kit. He looked at Leora and gave her a reassuring smile. "We'll get out of this," he promised. She wanted to believe him, but had learned too quickly that hope could be fragile. Yet something in his eyes, the steady confidence, the unwillingness to leave her behind, made her hold on to that hope. Hours passed, and the colony around them grew quiet except for the occasional distant explosion. Ethan took shifts keeping watch while Leora rested, her eyes scanning the shadows for threats. The silence between them was heavy, but it was not uncomfortable. In that silence, a bond began to form, fragile but undeniable. Leora saw a glimpse of humanity in Ethan, a willingness to risk everything for another being, even one as different as herself. When the first light of dawn crept across the jagged horizon, Ethan made a decision. Staying in the ruins was too dangerous. The attackers would return, and Leora's paralysis made her an easy target. "We're leaving," he said firmly. Leora's heart leapt with both fear and relief. She had no idea how they would escape, but she knew that with Ethan she had a chance. He lifted her carefully, adjusting her position to avoid strain, and began moving toward the uncharted terrain beyond the outpost. Each step was perilous. Rocks shifted underfoot, and the ground threatened to give way beneath them. Ethan navigated through the chaos with unwavering determination, while Leora clung to the hope that they could survive. She realized that humanity was strange, unpredictable, and at times reckless, but it was also capable of courage, empathy, and a sense of responsibility that could save lives. For the first time, she felt that perhaps not all beings abandoned others when faced with danger. Some would fight for what was right, even when the odds were against them. Ethan did not speak much, but every action carried meaning. He carried her through the ruins, avoided traps, and shielded her from debris. Leora, paralyzed yet slowly learning to trust, began to see the human not as a stranger, but as a protector. In that harsh, orange-lit world, a bond was forming, one that would carry them through trials neither had ever imagined. The terrain beyond the ruined outpost was harsh and unwelcoming. Sharp rocks jutted out of the orange soil, and the wind carried clouds of dust that stung Leora's face. She had never left her home region, and the open landscape made her uneasy. Every step Ethan took seemed careful yet determined. He balanced the need for speed with the knowledge that Leora could not move on her own. The human soldier's strength impressed her, but it was not just his physical power that mattered. It was the calmness in his mind, the ability to think even when danger surrounded them. Leora tried to speak, asking about the strange plants that grew among the rocks. Ethan smiled. "I don't know them either, but some look safe," he said. He showed her how to use the makeshift cover of boulders to hide from enemy patrols. Leora felt a strange admiration for humans. They were inventive in ways she had never seen, capable of creating solutions from nothing, even in the middle of chaos. As they moved, the sun rose higher, burning away the morning mist and revealing more of the desolate world. Ethan paused for a moment, letting Leora rest against his chest. "We need to find water soon," he said. "Without it, we won't make it very far." Leora nodded, though the concept of survival outside a controlled lab or city was foreign to her. She realized that humans were used to fighting not just enemies, but nature itself. Their resilience went beyond weapons. It was in their very survival instinct. They found a narrow canyon that seemed to offer some protection. Ethan set Leora down carefully, scanning the area for signs of danger. "Stay here," he whispered. He crept forward, moving like a shadow, his senses alert. When he returned, he had found a small stream of water hidden between rocks. Leora's eyes widened in relief. She drank carefully while Ethan kept watch. The water was bitter, but it revived her spirits. She realized how much she had depended on others and how important it was to trust someone when survival was at stake. Ethan and Leora continued through the canyon, moving slowly but steadily. Occasionally, the ground shook with distant explosions from the remaining enemy forces. Each tremor reminded them that danger was never far. Leora felt fear, but alongside it grew a sense of trust. Ethan had saved her once, and he was doing it again, step by step. She began to wonder why humans risked so much for others, especially strangers. Ethan did not explain his motivation. He simply acted. That, she thought, might be the most remarkable part of humanity. Night fell, and the temperature dropped sharply. Ethan built a small fire while Leora huddled in a blanket he had carried. The flickering light cast long shadows across the canyon walls, making the world seem both larger and smaller at the same time. Leora watched him, noticing small details, the way he cleaned his weapon, checked the surrounding area, and paused to listen to every sound. She realized that humans were not only brave but careful and thoughtful, a combination that made them survivors. As they rested, Leora told Ethan about her life as a scientist, about the research that made her valuable and dangerous. Ethan listened quietly, nodding occasionally but never judging. She spoke of the energy sources beneath the planet, of experiments her people had performed, and of the dangers that could arise if the knowledge fell into the wrong hands. Ethan understood the importance of her work, but more than that, he understood her. In the silence between words, Leora felt a connection forming, fragile but real. She had been abandoned before, but not this time. The next morning, they resumed their journey. The landscape changed to jagged cliffs and steep slopes, challenging even Ethan's endurance. Yet he never faltered. Leora began to help in small ways, guiding him when the path was uncertain, suggesting routes she had noticed from above. For the first time, she felt useful and capable, despite her paralysis. The bond between them grew not from words alone, but from shared effort and reliance on each other. A sudden noise made them freeze. Small metallic drones hovered above, scanning for survivors. Ethan crouched, holding Leora close, and whispered instructions. He created a simple diversion, drawing the drones away while keeping Leora hidden behind a rock. The plan worked, and the drones moved past without noticing them. Leora could hardly believe what she had witnessed. Humans could think quickly, adapt to any situation, and act decisively. Their courage was not just physical, it was mental and emotional, a quality that could not be taught. As they moved on, Leora felt hope rising within her. She realized that her survival was no longer a matter of luck. With Ethan by her side, she had a chance to live, to see more of the universe, and perhaps to contribute in ways she had never imagined. For the first time, she began to see humans not just as soldiers or invaders, but as beings capable of extraordinary compassion and bravery. By the time the sun set again, they had reached a safer, sheltered valley. Ethan carefully set Leora down, checking her condition before allowing them both a moment of rest. She looked at him, her gratitude unspoken but profound. In a world that had abandoned her, one human had chosen to stay. And that choice, small yet monumental, was changing everything she thought she knew about courage, trust, and the nature of life. The valley where they had taken shelter was quiet, but Ethan knew that safety was temporary. Enemy patrols could appear at any moment, and Leora's paralysis made her an easy target. He studied the terrain, tracing a path in his mind that would take them toward the edge of the planet's dangerous zones and possibly to a nearby human outpost. "We have to move before they find us," he said softly. Leora nodded, gripping his shoulders as he lifted her carefully. Each step was measured, every movement deliberate as they navigated through jagged rocks and narrow passages. The journey tested them in ways neither had expected. Torrential winds swept across the barren hills, carrying fine sand that scratched their skin and made breathing difficult. They climbed steep slopes, and every step threatened to dislodge rocks from above. Ethan's muscles ached from carrying Leora, but he did not complain. Instead, he focused on keeping her safe, using every skill he had learned from years of training. Leora, though physically helpless, began to notice the small ways he adapted to the terrain, how he shifted her weight to keep balance, how he chose paths that reduced the risk of injury. It was a kind of care she had never imagined. As they progressed, Leora began to share information about the energy sources she had been studying. She explained that certain mineral formations could create fields of energy that could protect them or even disable enemy devices. Ethan listened carefully, absorbing every detail. He realized that her knowledge could turn the tide if they reached the right location. For the first time, Leora felt that she had a role to play, not just as someone being saved, but as someone who could contribute to their survival. Their path eventually led them to a narrow canyon filled with strange, glowing plants. The light they emitted was soft, almost soothing, but Ethan remained alert. "This area is unfamiliar to me," he admitted. "Stay close and don't make sudden movements." Leora followed his instructions, trusting his judgment, though her heart raced with anxiety. The canyon's walls twisted unpredictably, and shadows danced with the glow of the plants. The world seemed alive, and yet it was dangerous. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed through the canyon. Ethan froze, listening carefully. Small drones emerged from the shadows, scanning for movement. He quickly assessed the situation and positioned Leora behind a thick rock formation. Using his combat training, he threw a small device that emitted light and sound in the opposite direction, creating a diversion. The drones followed the decoy, giving Ethan and Leora a chance to move quietly past the threat. Leora watched, amazed. Humans were not only brave, she realized, but they could think creatively under pressure. As night approached, the temperature dropped sharply. Ethan found a sheltered crevice and set Leora down carefully. He built a small fire from gathered materials, keeping it low to avoid attracting attention. Leora shivered, but the warmth and his presence gave her comfort. She realized that humans had a kind of endurance she had never seen before, not just in surviving physical challenges, but in facing emotional and moral ones. Ethan's willingness to risk everything for her was an example of this strength. During a brief moment of calm, Leora asked about his life before Zerath 9. Ethan spoke softly, telling her about Earth, his childhood, and his training as a soldier. He did not boast, and he did not seek sympathy. He simply shared his experiences. Leora listened, feeling a connection grow between them. She began to understand that courage was not just about fighting. It was also about standing by someone else, even when it was difficult or dangerous. The next day, they continued their journey. The landscape changed from rocky hills to a vast sandy plain. The heat was oppressive, and every step felt heavier than the last. Ethan carried Leora steadily, speaking to her occasionally to keep her calm and alert. They encountered several obstacles, shifting sands, sudden drops, and unstable rock formations. but Ethan navigated each one with patience and skill. Leora began to rely on him not just for physical support, but for guidance and reassurance. During a short break, Leora noticed something extraordinary. Some of the plants and minerals they passed seemed to react to her presence. She realized that the energy sources she had studied were not just passive. They were alive in some way, sensitive to living beings. She shared her observation with Ethan, who listened intently. Together, they began to use these signs to guide their path, a small but meaningful way for her to contribute to their survival. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of red and orange, Ethan and Leora reached the edge of a cliff overlooking a valley below. It was beautiful yet dangerous. Ethan paused, holding Leora carefully. "Tomorrow we start the descent," he said. "We need to keep moving, but you've been incredible. I couldn't do this without you." Leora felt a warmth in her chest she had never felt before, a combination of gratitude, trust, and something like hope. She realized that humans were capable of extraordinary acts, not just of strength, but of loyalty and compassion. For the first time since the attack on the outpost, Leora allowed herself to imagine a future beyond survival. With Ethan beside her, she felt that perhaps she could reach safety, and that the knowledge she carried could make a difference. In that moment, the bond between them strengthened, built not only on necessity but on trust, respect, and the quiet understanding that some beings were worth fighting for, no matter the cost. The valley below was wide and open, with jagged rocks and twisted trees scattered across the landscape. Ethan looked carefully at the path they would take, knowing that one wrong step could send them tumbling into danger. Leora clung to his shoulders as he adjusted his grip, carrying her with steady strength. She was tired, and her muscles ached from the long journey, but the thought of reaching safety gave her the courage to hold on. She had never relied on anyone like this before, and yet she trusted Ethan completely. As they descended into the valley, a sudden noise made them freeze. The wind carried the sound of metallic clanging, followed by a low humming that sent shivers down Leora's spine. Ethan crouched, shielding her behind a large rock. "Stay quiet," he whispered. Through the shadows, they saw a patrol of enemy scouts moving in their direction. Ethan's eyes scanned the area, calculating the safest route. With careful, silent movements, he guided Leora along a hidden path, keeping their presence unnoticed. Once the patrol passed, Ethan allowed himself a small sigh of relief. "We have to keep moving," he said. Leora nodded, though fear still lingered. She had learned that humans were not only brave, but also thoughtful, capable of making quick decisions under pressure. She admired his ability to remain calm and focused, even when everything around him was dangerous and unpredictable. As they continued, the terrain became more difficult. Steep cliffs and loose stones forced Ethan to slow his pace. Leora watched him carefully, noticing the way he adjusted his footing to protect her. She began to understand that courage was not just about facing danger, it was also about protecting others, often at great personal risk. Every step he took reinforced her growing respect and admiration for humans. During a brief rest, Leora began to speak about her studies. She explained how the energy field she had been researching could create protective barriers and even disrupt enemy devices. Ethan listened closely, asking questions and imagining ways they could use her knowledge to stay safe. For the first time, Leora felt that her abilities could make a difference, even while she was unable to walk. She realized that humans valued more than strength. They valued intelligence, creativity, and cooperation. As they moved deeper into the valley, a sudden storm began to rise. Strong winds whipped around them, carrying clouds of dust and debris. Ethan shielded Leora with his body, moving with careful precision to keep her safe. The storm made the path treacherous, and several times Ethan had to pause, steadying himself before taking the next step. Leora's trust in him grew with each careful movement. She understood that survival in this world required both physical skill and unwavering determination. At one point, they encountered a narrow ledge that ran along a steep cliff. One misstep could have been fatal. Ethan placed Leora down carefully, helping her balance as he guided her along the edge. She felt fear gripping her heart, but his calm voice and steady hands gave her confidence. "We are almost through this," he said, and she believed him. For the first time, she saw humans as more than soldiers. They were protectors capable of guiding and supporting others through impossible challenges. As night fell, the storm finally passed, leaving the valley bathed in soft moonlight. Ethan found a sheltered spot beneath an overhanging rock and set Leora down gently. He built a small fire, careful to keep it low to avoid attracting attention. Leora shivered, and Ethan wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. "We've done well today," he said quietly. "Tomorrow we continue and we get closer to safety." She nodded, feeling warmth in more ways than one. She had never known such care and dedication from anyone, and it left a lasting impression on her. During the quiet night, Leora began to ask more questions about Ethan's life and humanity. He shared stories of Earth, of struggles and achievements, of moments where people had risked everything to help others. She listened, fascinated by the depth of courage and empathy that humans could show. Leora realized that strength was not only measured by power or skill, but by the willingness to stand up for someone else, even when it was difficult or dangerous. By morning, they were ready to continue. The valley ahead was full of challenges, but Leora felt a new confidence. She knew that with Ethan by her side, they could face whatever came next. Every obstacle they had overcome together had strengthened their bond. She could sense that he was not only carrying her physically, but also carrying the responsibility of protecting her in a way that required trust, skill, and patience. As they moved forward, Leora understood that this journey was more than survival. It was a lesson in courage, empathy, and the power of human determination. Ethan had shown her that even in a world full of danger and fear, there were beings willing to risk everything for the sake of another. In that realization, she found hope, not only for herself but for the future they could build together, where understanding and cooperation between species might be possible. The morning light revealed a narrow pass that led to a hidden valley, the kind of place where few had ever traveled. Ethan carried Leora with careful determination, scanning the horizon for danger. The wind carried faint sounds, distant echoes of machinery and the soft hum of the planet's energy currents. Leora felt her heart race. Every step they took was heavy with risk, but she trusted Ethan completely. He moved with steady precision, his experience and instinct guiding them forward. As they reached the entrance to the valley, a sudden rumble shook the ground beneath them. From the shadows emerged a group of enemy drones, their metallic bodies glinting in the sunlight. Ethan crouched behind a rock, shielding Leora as he assessed the situation. "We have to act quickly," he whispered. Leora's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen a human react so calmly under pressure, and yet here he was, ready to protect her with every skill he possessed. Ethan used the terrain to his advantage, positioning Leora behind a boulder while he created a small diversion. He threw a device that emitted light and noise, drawing the drones away from their path. Leora watched in awe as the humans' strategy unfolded. They were brave, yes, but their courage was combined with intelligence and creativity. She realized that humans did not simply confront danger, they studied it, understood it, and found a way to survive. Once the immediate threat passed, Ethan continued moving carefully through the valley. The terrain was rough, with sharp rocks and uneven ground, but he adjusted his grip and pace to keep Leora safe. She marveled at his endurance. Hours of travel, carrying her through such harsh conditions, would have broken many, yet he pressed on without complaint. For the first time, Leora began to see that courage could be quiet as well as bold, shown not in loud gestures, but in steady, relentless determination to do what was right. As they moved deeper into the valley, Leora noticed something unusual. Certain rocks and plants emitted a soft, pulsating glow. She realized that the energy fields she had been studying were not only present in the hidden nexus she sought, but spread throughout the landscape. Tentatively, she reached out with her mind, trying to sense the flow of energy. To her surprise, she felt a faint response, as if the land itself recognized her presence. She shared her discovery with Ethan, who listened intently. Together, they began to use the energy signals to guide their path, a small but meaningful way for her to contribute to their journey. The first real test of their teamwork came when they encountered a chasm blocking their path. The rocks on the edge were loose, and a fall could be fatal. Ethan set Leora down carefully and examined the area. "We can use those rocks to create a makeshift bridge," and he said, pointing to a series of stable stones across the gap. Leora's eyes lit up. She realized that even in her paralyzed state, she could help. Using her knowledge of the energy currents, she guided Ethan to the safest stones, directing him where to step to avoid hidden dangers. For the first time, she felt she was actively contributing to their survival. By the time they crossed the chasm, The sun was high in the sky. Their bodies ached and the heat pressed down on them, but their spirits were stronger than ever. Leora felt a sense of empowerment she had never known. Humans had shown her that courage and ingenuity could overcome the impossible, and now she could participate in their efforts, despite her limitations. As they reached the center of the valley, they found signs of the energy nexus Leora had been studying. Strange formations of rock and crystal pulsed with light, and the air itself seemed charged. Leora's excitement grew, but she also understood the danger. The energy source could be powerful enough to harm them if not approached carefully. Ethan studied the area with her, moving cautiously, his focus unwavering. He listened to her instructions and followed her guidance, trusting her insight as much as she trusted his strength. Suddenly, a group of enemy patrols appeared on the ridge above. Ethan's heart raced, but he did not panic. He positioned Leora behind a large crystal formation, shielding her from view. "We can use the energy fields," he whispered. Leora concentrated, channeling her knowledge to create a temporary barrier of energy around them. The patrols scanned the area, unaware of their presence, and slowly moved past. Leora felt a thrill of accomplishment. She had helped save them both, and she knew that together, humans and Valari could achieve what neither could do alone. By evening, they found a safe spot near the edge of the valley. Ethan carefully set Leora down and checked her condition. She smiled, feeling stronger and more confident than she had in weeks. "We've come a long way," Ethan said, a hint of pride in his voice. Leora realized that their journey was not just about survival. It was about trust, teamwork, and the courage to face impossible challenges together. In that moment, she understood something profound. Humans were not just soldiers. They were protectors, problem solvers, and friends. They had the power to inspire courage in others and to make the impossible seem possible. Leora's admiration and trust for Ethan deepened, and she knew that the bond they had formed would guide them through whatever dangers lay ahead. The hidden valley glowed under the soft light of the twin suns, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. Ethan carried Leora carefully, aware that each step could bring them closer to danger. Her eyes sparkled with determination now, and she no longer trembled as she had when the journey began. Leora had begun to understand that the human strength was more than physical. It was the courage to act, the patience to plan, and the heart to protect someone even when the world seemed against them. As they approached the energy nexus, the ground beneath them began to hum with a strange resonance. Leora's senses tingled, and she realized the energy was responding to her presence. She tried to channel it, a skill she had only briefly tested in her lab. To her surprise, a faint warmth spread through her legs. Though she could not move fully, she could feel strength returning in small ways. She looked at Ethan, who noticed the subtle change. "You're doing it," he said, a hint of encouragement in his voice. Leora felt a surge of hope. Suddenly, a shadow fell over them. Enemy patrols had discovered their location. Dozens of drones hovered above the valley, their sensors scanning for movement. Ethan positioned Leora behind a crystal formation, shielding her from view. "We have to defend this place," he said. Leora's heart pounded, but now she had something to contribute. She focused on the energy around them, trying to create a barrier that could hide them and disrupt the patrol's sensors. The crystals responded, glowing brighter as a shimmering shield formed around their position. The drones paused, their sensors confused by the energy distortion. Ethan used this moment to plan their next move. He guided Leora to a safer spot behind the largest crystal, keeping her protected while he prepared a defensive strategy. She marveled at his calmness. Even when surrounded by danger, he did not panic. Instead, he thought through the situation, using every resource at his disposal. Leora realized that humans' true strength lay not just in fighting, but in their ability to remain composed and find solutions when all seemed lost. The patrols began to advance again, but the energy shield created by Leora's focus kept them hidden. She felt a small thrill of power. This was the first time she had actively helped defend herself and Ethan. It gave her confidence she had never felt before. Humans had shown her courage through their actions, and now she could experience it herself. The bond between them grew stronger with every passing moment, a silent agreement that they would face danger together. Ethan noticed a slight movement in Leora and realized she was trying to channel more energy. "Be careful," he warned, "but don't stop. You're stronger than you think." Leora nodded, concentrating on the flow of energy. Slowly, the warmth in her legs spread further, and she could feel tiny sparks of movement. Though she could not walk, she could shift slightly, enough to assist Ethan in positioning the shield and dodging debris. She had become part of the defense, no longer just a passenger in his care. The enemy patrols were relentless. Drones buzzed close, sending beams of light across the valley in search of them. Ethan fired small, precise shots to disable drones without drawing too much attention. Leora guided him subtly, pointing to weak points in their approach that she sensed through the energy. Their teamwork became seamless, each action complementing the other. Ethan's physical skill and strategy, combined with Leora's knowledge and newfound energy control, made them a formidable team. After a tense hour, the patrols began to retreat, unable to penetrate their defenses. Ethan and Leora remained hidden, catching their breath and taking stock of the situation. Leora's body trembled with exhaustion, but she smiled at Ethan. I did it," she whispered. He nodded, a proud smile on his face. "You did. You're stronger than you realized, and you just saved us both." As night fell, they found a quiet place to rest near the edge of the Nexus. Leora could feel her strength returning gradually, fueled not just by the energy, but by the trust and courage she had shared with Ethan. She realized that humans had a way of inspiring others to push beyond their limits. Through their patience, determination, and willingness to risk everything for another being, they could awaken courage in even the most fragile creatures. By the time they settled, the energy nexus pulsed softly, a reminder of the power that surrounded them and the journey still ahead. Ethan kept watch while Leora rested, her mind filled with gratitude and a sense of purpose. She had been abandoned once, left helpless in a world that seemed indifferent. Now she was learning that courage, loyalty, and hope could make the impossible possible. She had not only survived, but had begun to contribute actively to their fight. Leora looked at Ethan and realized that this journey had changed her perception forever. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they were capable of extraordinary acts of bravery and kindness. They fought not only with weapons, but with heart, ingenuity, and a willingness to protect life against all odds. In Ethan's steady presence, she felt a bond stronger than any fear. Together, they were not just surviving. They were preparing to triumph over whatever challenges lay ahead. The valley glowed under the first light of dawn, the energy nexus pulsating softly like a living heart. Leora stood, her legs trembling but no longer completely paralyzed. The energy from the nexus flowed through her, restoring small movements she had not felt in years. She looked at Ethan, who smiled with quiet pride. "You're ready," he said. Leora nodded, realizing that this was the moment she had been preparing for, not just to survive, but to fight alongside him. The enemy forces had discovered their location. A fleet of drones and patrol units moved through the valley, their sensors scanning for the nexus and anyone protecting it. Ethan crouched beside Leora, whispering instructions. "We can't let them reach the nexus. It's too dangerous and it's too important." Leora's heart raced, but fear had been replaced by determination. She could move, even if only slightly, and she would use every ounce of her strength to protect the place that held the key to so much knowledge and power. They moved quickly, using the energy fields to guide them. Leora concentrated, sending pulses of energy from the nexus through the rocks and crystals, creating barriers and confusing the enemy sensors. Ethan moved in perfect rhythm with her, combining his combat skill with her guidance. Every action they took was coordinated, every decision precise. For the first time, Leora realized that humans were not only brave but also capable of inspiring courage in others, turning fear into focused action. The first wave of drones arrived, buzzing overhead like metallic insects. Ethan fired carefully, disabling some while Leora strengthened the energy shield around them. She could feel the energy responding to her, and with each pulse she regained more control over her legs. Her movements became stronger, more confident. Together they forced the drones back, driving them away from the nexus. The sight of their teamwork amazed Leora. Humans could endure, adapt, and fight, but they also trusted and collaborated in ways that made even impossible challenges manageable. Suddenly, a group of enemy soldiers appeared at the edge of the valley, moving quickly to seize the nexus. Ethan and Leora moved into position. Leora, though still weak, used the energy fields to disrupt their technology while Ethan faced them directly, his movements precise and calculated. She guided him to weak points, whispering advice and sending pulses of energy that slowed their attackers. For the first time, Leora felt fully part of the fight. She was no longer just being saved. She was contributing, making a difference, and proving that courage was not limited by species or physical limitations. The battle raged for hours, but their coordination and trust gave them an advantage. Ethan's determination never wavered, and Leora's newfound strength allowed her to act decisively. They managed to push back the enemy forces, protecting the Nexus from capture. Leora moved with more confidence, her legs carrying her short distances, enough to assist Ethan in defending key positions. She had discovered that humans' greatest strength was not just in their weapons or skill, but in their unshakable willingness to stand for what was right, even against overwhelming odds. As the sun began to set, the remaining enemy forces retreated. The valley was quiet again, filled only with the soft hum of the Nexus. Ethan helped Leora to a safe spot, checking her condition carefully. She smiled at him, exhausted but triumphant. "We did it," she whispered. Ethan nodded, his eyes reflecting pride and relief. "We did it together," he said. Leora realized that survival had never been the point alone. It was the courage, trust, and cooperation that had allowed them to succeed. In the following days, Leora regained more strength. The energy from the Nexus restored her mobility gradually, and she began to move without assistance. The bond between her species and humans strengthened, built on the trust and courage displayed by Ethan. She realized that humans were capable of extraordinary acts, not just of bravery, but of kindness, ingenuity, and moral courage. They could inspire others to rise above fear and to fight for what was right. As Leora stood fully on her legs for the first time in years, she looked at Ethan and the valley around them. The journey had been perilous, but it had also revealed the best of humanity, their ability to protect, to endure, and to inspire. Leora knew that this lesson would stay with her forever. The humans she had once doubted had proven themselves heroes not only in action, but in spirit. Ethan looked at her and smiled. "You've done amazing things," he said. Leora returned the smile, understanding that their journey had been about more than survival. It had been about the courage to stand for each other, the strength to endure, and the hope that no one is ever truly alone when someone is willing to fight for them. Together they had protected the Nexus, survived the impossible, and formed a bond that would last far beyond the valley. In that quiet, glowing place, Leora understood the truth about humans. They could be fearless, inventive, and compassionate, willing to risk everything to save another being. She had seen it firsthand, and it had changed her forever. Courage, she realized, was not measured by power alone, but by the willingness to act for what is right, to protect others, and to never give up, even when the world seemed against you. Ethan's actions had proven that humanity's greatest strength was its heart, and Leora would carry that lesson wherever she went. The sun set, bathing the valley in warm light, and for the first time Leora felt fully alive. The humans had not abandoned anyone. They had saved, inspired, and taught her the true meaning of courage. Together they had faced danger, endured trials, and triumphed. The future was uncertain, but Leora knew one thing. With humans like Ethan, hope and bravery would always find a way to shine.